Donald Trump is sending the National Guard to Memphis. The Tennessee governor, Governor Bill Lee, he's certainly happy with it. Well, the mayor of Memphis, Paul Young, said he did not ask for it. It's not his choice, but the decision has been made, so therefore he'll work with them. I don't understand that decision. He doesn't have to work with them. It's not like he doesn't have the same issues that Muriel Bowser has in Washington, D.C., where the feds can have control over Washington, D.C. Joining us right now is State Representative Justin Pearson. Glad to have you back on the show. In a second, we're going to play some of the mayor's news conference today. But this is clear. Donald Trump, red state governor, is he not going to oppose this? He got opposition from Governor Pritzker in Illinois, Democrat. Opposition from Gavin Newsom in California, Democrat. So now he's found his perfect foil, a red state governor who says, sure, come on in.
Absolutely. I mean, what we are seeing is, well, again, another significant abuse of power by this administration against a black community. The majority of residents and people who live in Memphis and Shelby County are black African-American folk. And the fact that he's targeted Los Angeles, the fact that he's targeted Washington, D.C., threatened to target Chicago is no coincidence. This is all a part of a ploy as it relates to authoritarianism and him being a dictator wannabe and enshrining white supremacy and its abuse of power in our communities. And so we have to speak up at minimum and resist what is happening, because this is only the start. We know this is not how it ends. Midterm elections are coming up. Presidential elections are coming up. So what happens when he deploys the National Guard into our communities during those times? And as you said, this is a state that's run by Republicans. This is by Republicans, and yet they aren't investing in the things that we need for them to. They're attacking and threatening our communities.
So, okay, and we're going to play a little bit in a second. So when the mayor says, I have no choice, okay, I don't understand that. Here's what I'm looking at. All right, so federal government, so Governor Lee, if y'all want to send in these troops and you want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, how about y'all simply cut a check for Memphis to be able to expand crime prevention efforts, and not just when it comes to police, but also when it comes to the other issues, economic issues that impact lowering crime, which is what Brandon Scott did in Maryland, which is what Brandon Johnson has done in Chicago.
You cannot have a conversation about crime in this country without talking about poverty. There is no way that you need to have a military occupation when you don't even have policies for policy intervention, prevention, and alleviation. And in this state, there has been an intentional effort not to do anything about eradicating poverty, and yet we give billions in tax cuts to corporations. Donald Trump, Bill Lee, Cameron Sexton, Rand McNally, none of these people care about Memphis or the people who live here. They don't care about ending crime. They don't care about any of those things. They're using this as a part of their political talking points, as well as political power building for building an authoritarian regime and destroying our democracy. But if they actually wanted to help, they would give tens of billions of dollars to Memphis and Shelby County to eradicate poverty, to fix housing, to ensure kids are getting adequately educated. But they aren't trying to deal with the root causes of the very issue that they're talking about. Why? Because Bill Lee's been in office 8 years. He hasn't tried to do anything about poverty. He hasn't tried to do anything substantially about crime. Why? Because the National Rifle Association, the Tennessee Firearms Association, is in these folks' back pocket. And so they know that they're not going to put forward any laws to actually end the gun violence epidemic, actually prevent guns from being in the hands of people who otherwise should not have them. One of the reasons that I got expelled a couple of years ago was fighting against gun violence and demanding gun safety legislation. They don't want to address the problem, but they do want to use our black city as a pawn in this authoritarian game. And we do have a responsibility as elected officials to speak up and to stand up against this and to demand that we get the resources from the federal government financially and don't get a military occupation.
We reached out to the mayor's office. We got no response from the mayor's office, but we did pull this statement for social media. Mayor Paul Young said earlier this week, I was informed that the governor and the president were considering deploying the National Guard and other resources to Memphis. I'm committed to working to ensure any efforts strengthen our community and build on our progress. We agree with Governor Lee that effective support for Memphis comes through focused initiatives that deliver results like we have seen with the FBI, state troopers, and other law enforcement partnerships. What we need most are financial resources for intervention and prevention, additional patrol officers, and case support to strengthen MPD's investigations. Memphis is already making measurable progress in bringing down crime, and we support initiatives that help accelerate the pace of the work our officers, community partners, and residents are doing every day, unquote. I take it you never heard, I take it that Governor Bill Lee never consulted you. I take it that U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty and U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn never consulted you on any of this.
Absolutely not. They haven't consulted me. They haven't called, and they won't. They won't call because they actually don't want to address the root causes of the problems that we're dealing with. They only want to continue to perpetuate a narrative of criminality, black criminality. They only want to continue to perpetuate a narrative that black folks, you all can't govern yourselves, you all can't lead yourselves, you all do not have the solutions. And so the only thing that you will understand is having militarized men, women, and people in your community policing and taking on police powers that they otherwise should not have. This is detrimental not only to the idea of having a democracy, it's detrimental to the beliefs that many of us hold about the right to self-government. And years ago, that may have been a Republican saying or theme for their party, but it has to be our responsibility to protect and to defend ourselves from these overreaches and power by this administration and by these white supremacists who only want to use our cities, to use pain that we actually do experience and endure as talking points for them in the political sense. They haven't called me. They're not going to call me. But what they are going to hear is the voices of our community. They are going to hear other elected officials who have the courage to speak up and to actually say what needs to be said, stand up and fight back against what is happening in our community. We do want financial federal investment. That we do want. We don't want a military occupation. And for decades, we have been deprived of getting the resources that we need to actually deal with the eradication of poverty, to deal with the housing insecurity. 36% of children in Memphis are living in poverty. And this has been consistent for years. And we have yet to have leadership nationally, at the local, especially not at the state level, to actually address the root causes of the problem. And gun violence is the leading cause of death for kids under the age of 18. That doesn't happen by coincidence or accident. That is done by policies being passed at the state legislature that has made it easier for people to have access to firearms than it is for them to access a higher wage job. That's what we have to change. And that's what we have to articulate in this moment and in this.
And correct me if I'm wrong, after there was that mass shooting at a school, wasn't the first action of the Republican-controlled legislature to give gun manufacturers immunity?
One of the first bills they had was to give gun manufacturers immunity. Another bill that they had was to arm teachers. And then one of the first acts they took after that was my expulsion and my colleagues' expulsion. So they have never actually taken the issue of black pain seriously. They've never actually taken the issue of gun violence disproportionately hurting and harming our community in Memphis and Shelby County seriously. But now, all of a sudden, they're saying this overreach into our community, the National Guard coming into Memphis, is the solution without ever taking a single step to prevent the problem from happening. Because they don't want for us to be successful. They don't want for our kids to grow up. They don't want for our community to succeed. They want to continue to have people in Tennessee, because we are Tennesseans, being mistreated, misused, and abused by the government. And this is the history of this state. This is the history of this country for its black residents, for its black citizens in particular. The state budget was $60 billion. Ask me how many billions came back to Memphis and Shelby County. They're not thinking about investing enough. And that is the problem. We deserve and we demand investment in state government, federal government, but they've yet to do it.
Matt, you're first.
Situation where you don't have a Supreme Court that is going to enforce the sovereignty, essentially, of your local community. What funding or appropriations or other mechanism do you have to push back? Because before you answer, what I've really been struggling with is we really have a crisis of federalism in this country right now. You have a president who's far overstepping his bounds into realms that are supposed to be yours, right? Or other locally elected politicians' realms of influence. So, what do you see as mechanisms to push back against that when you see the courts, at least the Supreme Court, is not holding the line the way it needs to?
Yeah, I mean, you have a couple of things. One, you have court cases that the administration has lost or is likely to lose when they try to encroach in California, the threat in Maryland. And because those are democratically controlled states, they are more difficult for the president to send in National Guardsmen and National Guards folks as policing presences. But when you have a very weak, cowardice Bill Lee or Republican leaders like Cameron Sexton and the like in Tennessee, they're able to more easily corrupt them because they're Republicans in power and misuse their authority against their citizens, in this case, citizens in Memphis and Shelby County. So our response has to look at all legal means, and we're fortunate that there are a lot of lawyers helping our city government and leaders to understand what is our power, what are our leverages for power that we can ask for, what demands can we make to ensure that our citizens are safe. We are deeply worried and concerned about over-policing. We had the National Guard in Memphis after Dr. King was assassinated. We had the National Guard in Memphis in 1978 when the firefighters went on strike. It does not bode well for us and for our communities that already experience over-policing. We even lost in Memphis, Tennessee, Tyree Nichols at the hands of police officers. And so we know that having more policing is not the answer, that there are some legal avenues that we are learning so that we will be able to defend ourselves against the encroachment of the federal government into our community and to defend each and every one of our residents as best as we possibly can. But this is unprecedented territory for us in the 21st century. And so we're having to fight in this present moment.
Let's go to Candace.
So you mentioned Tyrese Nichols, and certainly these 3 of the 5 officers, they've been granted new trials because of something that the judge said. And I am wondering, what is the state of the police there in your estimation? Have there been any type of changes or anything that you've seen with boots on the ground with the police since the beating death?
Yeah. I mean, the death of Tyree Nichols is heartbreaking. His family has become family to me. Mama Wells, Mr. Wells, his sister. I've gotten very close with them, and they're some of the strongest, most powerful people that I've ever had the opportunity to meet. And what's happening with that trial in particular is heartbreaking and devastating. The fact that a new trial has been granted for these 3 officers who were each found guilty of some crime very recently until that was overturned because a judge said something that he should not have said, and it tainted the entire case, according to the judge who reviewed that appeal. And so there's a lot of heartbreak and pain and shock as it relates to the case of Tyree Nichols and elevating his life, and the case of the officers, I would say, who took his life away. When it comes to our policing in our city, we tried and did pass laws locally to protect our community. The state preempted our laws and tried to undo them. The chief of police has said that she's following those laws, following those policies that were passed by the city council, I do believe. But the reality is we are still over-policed, particularly in poor, black, and brown communities more than anybody else. We're still more likely to die at the hands of police officers than any other demographic of people. And so we have not solved, again, all of the problems that need to be addressed as it relates to policing in our communities. And the National Guard, they are not a police force. They have no idea about community policing. They do not have the work, the role, the responsibility of policing communities. That's not their jobs. And so you're putting very ill-equipped and ill-trained people into an urban setting, a city setting as ours is, and giving them powers, potentially giving them powers and giving them authority that they should not otherwise have, which can only be detrimental for our community. And we have to fight and speak up and speak back now, because we shouldn't wait until something bad happens to call out what is going on, that we have a white supremacist president of the United States attacking a black community and weaponizing the military to entrench an authoritarian regime. And the consequences of that for our community are detrimental and could be dire. And so we need to speak about it now so that if there are ways that we can prevent that and protect our citizens, protect our people, we're able to do that. And I know a lot of good community organizations are already working on Know Your Rights trainings because we are going to have to protect ourselves. Memphis is going to protect Memphis. And that's the work and that's the responsibility right now.
Michael?
Representative Pearson, today Associated Press has an article about this, and they said that Donald Trump said on Friday that he decided to send troops into Memphis, Tennessee, after Union Pacific CEO Jim Vena urged him to do so earlier in the week to address crime in the city of Memphis, Tennessee. Now, this is at a time when Memphis has overall crime has hit a 25-year low. The first 8 months of 2025, and murders have hit a 6-year low as well. Do you know anything about this conversation? Have you heard anything about this? Number one. Number two, what type of investments would you like the federal government to make? We know $811 million in public safety and victim service grants have been cut by the Trump administration. So what type of investments would you like to see?
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrifying thing when a very wealthy person can meet with the president of the United States one time, and then a decision that impacts over 900,000 people in my city and county happens almost overnight and is announced on Fox and Friends. That's too much power that's being given overwhelmingly wealthy white men in the United States of America. But in our city, we're even fighting Elon Musk and the Chamber of Commerce, Ted Townsend. It's the same principle. Wealthy white people being able to dictate what is good, what is necessary for our communities. And that isn't how you build safer communities, healthier communities, communities that are going to be sustainable into the future for future generations. And so I've heard of that conversation. It concerns me greatly because billionaires are running our government, and they're running it in the conversations that they're having. They're running it in the laws that they're passing, such as the big ugly bill that literally gave $4 trillion worth of wealth to rich people in this country and stole it from poorer people. Like this pattern is endemic and systemic in the way that this country has been operating, but particularly under this administration that doesn't care about poor people, doesn't care about black folks, Latino folks, Asian folks, doesn't care about anybody who is not a billionaire, who is not wealthy, who is not influential in the ways that they regard. And so it is a we problem. It's about us. It's about all of us. And whether you are a poor white person or not, you need to realize that just because they are stealing and coming after our rights today does not make you safe. It does not guarantee anything for you. And the erosion of democracy in our lives is the erosion of democracy in our entire political life. And what are the investments that we need? To your point, there's a recognition that hundreds of millions, billions of dollars that otherwise would have helped with violence intervention programs, that would have reduced the amount of people who are getting sick and don't have access to health care, or hungry and don't have access to food. All of those types of programs are being cut by this administration. They are doing things to make it harder for everybody to live. And yet they're blaming the consequences of their actions on majority black cities, on majority black leaders. This is part of what's immoral and unjust. And so what do we need? And what am I calling for? $10 billion of investment into Memphis and Shelby County to help us with housing. $10 billion of investment to help us with educating each and every one of our children so that they are at the right literacy level when we know 2/3 of our children are graduating and they are not even reading at the grade level that they should. We need billions of dollars of investments that actually deal with the problem on the front end, not militarization, not over-policing, not a military occupation, but an intervention as it relates to financial investment from Memphis and Shelby County. That's what we should be demanding. That's what we should be speaking about. I'm not looking for us to partner with the National Guard. I'm looking for us to demand that the federal government give us our money back and invest in our community, because we are suffering in so many different ways. We have some of the folks who are struggling the most here. We have some of the highest levels of unemployment, some of the highest levels of people being unhoused. We've got some real challenges, but we need the federal government to do its job and get us more resources. And that's the job of our congressmen. That's the job of our city leaders. That's the job of the president of the United States. And if he would focus on that job, we wouldn't be talking about crime in so many different places.
All right, State Rep. Justin Pearson, man, we appreciate it. Keep up the good fight.
Hey, we're fighting together. Let's keep going.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.